Major General Joe Harrington, Commander, U.S. Army Africa, recently sat down with VOA's Carla Babb for an exclusive interview on U.S. operations on the continent. As he told her, the U.S. Army in Africa is involved in hundreds of operations in the continent and conducts exercises with African partners. Here's that interview.
Let's talk about some of those exercises and operations across the continent. In Somalia, the Army just put in a few dozen from the 101st to train some of the Somali Army. How is that going?
Actually, those are soldiers that fall under the 1st of the 101st, and they fall under the United States Army Africa. And I was in Somalia last month visiting them during the course. They are training Somalis how to drive to keep their logistics going. And it's going very well. So we're pretty happy with the progress that is going on that particular training mission.
So by drivers, you mean?
Truck drivers. And I happen to be a son of a truck driver. So visiting that course, I had an interesting time talking to the Somalis that were taking it and the soldiers that were giving it.
Do you see this continuing throughout your tenure as the head of U.S. Army Africa?
Yes.
Is that going to expand to other goals in the future?
Well, like I said, I'm sending people there and we'll do an assessment. So we're all working together to understand what the problem is, and we're also working with our mostly European partners on how we can help the Somali National Army be effective in securing its own population.
For our audience that is wondering, why is he not talking about special operations and conducting strikes?
I'm not a special operations officer.
Tell our audience, please, the difference between special operations in Africa and U.S. Army Africa.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Carl. I appreciate that. But U.S. Army Africa, what I try to look at is how do we look at a long-term approach to Africa? How do we help the professional capacity and capability of armies deal with their own problems? And the special ops, they're dealing in their special niche that they're very good at. What I'm looking at is the general purpose Army. How can we help them improve their security? How can we help them improve their professionalism? Do the population run towards an army or run away from an army? And there's some bad history going back years in Africa that they were afraid of their own soldiers. Well, working with them on a regular basis and watching the evolution, since a lot of those things happened years ago, it's very encouraging to see where those armies have come to.
Major General Joe Harrington, thank you so much for speaking with VOA today.
Thank you very much, Carla.
Just as armies can grow and thrive, individual leaders and those aspiring to be attended a recent Africa Leadership Conference in the United States of America. Channel Television's Washington correspondent Maria Bird has more on that story.
Africans in the diaspora gathered at the Gaylord Hotel in Washington, D.C. to discuss the importance of African leadership across the world.
So often we don't realize how big something can be. For instance, like the NAACP, I think, started around someone's kitchen table, and I'm sure that a lot of wonderful things in Africa, in so much in our history, just happened over someone having a conversation.
But I understand today that there's no collaboration that is bigger when people who share a common heritage decide to do something that is going to impact not one, but the common good, the people of Africa.
The question that I would ask all of you is simply, what gift are you holding hostage from our community because of your personal fears? What is it that you are not doing that God has sent you here to do because you're scared?
The keynote speaker for the event provided insight into why it's important to hold an event on African leadership in the U.S.
When you said something, you touched me, and that was, what is that gift that you have been holding back out of fear? You spoke to me when you said that.
This was the first of many African leadership conferences sponsored by Gotney in the United States. From Washington, Maria Bird, Channel Television News.
You're watching Africa 54. I'm Esther Gidhu in Washington. As many as 100 elephants are killed every day for their tusks. And China, the biggest market for poachers, recently announced it will end its ivory trade this year. The United States implemented a near-total ban on the trade of African ivory last year, and conservationists gathered in New York to destroy merchandise from that trade. Faith Lapidus has that story.
Over the past century, elephant populations in the wild have plummeted from millions to about 500,000, all because of ivory.
You see this piece here in front of us, the top, this one piece here. 5 juvenile elephants were killed to make that small piece. Today, we are going to crush approximately 100 elephants. That is the number of elephants that die approximately every day in Africa.
This is literally millions of dollars worth of confiscated ivory, and the main reason that the groups say elephants are being killed every day.
A 2-year period from 2010 to 2012, 100,000 elephants were slaughtered so that someone could have something like this in their living room. It disgusts me. Who said it before? Commissioner, you said it. It's disgusting.
All the ivory being crushed was seized in undercover investigations that brought in nearly 3 tons of illegal carvings and jewelry. But there is some reason to be hopeful. The U.S. and China have committed to ending the trade, and New York has passed anti-ivory laws because it is one of the largest entry points for illegal ivory. The organizers of this event say they're trying to send a simple message.
To say to the world, just in case you are contemplating buying ivory and you're not sure of the legality of it, don't buy it.
The organizers say they're fighting elephant extinction and want to make sure that carved ivory isn't going to be the only thing that remains of these iconic animals. For writer Kevin Enochs, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
It's time now for a short break. Before we go, a reminder to visit our website, channelstv.com, for all the latest information around the clock. You can also find us on youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, boys who reach the age of 10 join the men's club with a ritual of manhood at an annual festival in Adamawa State, northeast Nigeria. That story when we return.